What up, though, cousins? It's your favorite cousin with another spooky story. Come on, let's go. So this story takes place in Chelsea, Michigan. I was working there back in 2020. It was a hospital, Chelsea Hospital. Now, I was pregnant and I was already working day shift, but they allowed me to pick up night shifts, right? So I picked up this night shift, and when I was picking up this night shift, some weird stuff happened. I was, about to do my last round and go on break. I told my coworker, like, hey, I'm getting tired. I really want to go on break. She said, okay, just let me know before you leave off the floor. So I do my last round, and by the time I get to like the end of my rounds, I glance over, and it's this woman who, she didn't need to be check and changed. So I glanced in there and I saw this man at her bedside, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm wondering if her son just, wanted to visit her, and whatever before visiting hours were over. Now visiting hours were already over. I think it was like an hour or two and whatever that he stayed over. So I'm like, okay, cool. So before I left off the floor, I told my coworker, like, hey, I'm about to go on break, but just so you know, there's a visitor in room so-and-so. And she was like, no, we did rounds already and there are no visitors in any room. And so I was just like, okay. I ignored it because I'm like, okay, maybe he came back up here and he slid in and they didn't see him. So I pressed the button to the elevator, so I can get ready to go on break. And when I pressed the button, I don't hear any humming. The elevator was often, broken, or it just took too long. And so, I'm just standing there. And while I'm standing there, the man from the room came and stood right next to me. So we're waiting for the elevator. The elevator never comes. And I decide that I'm going to take the stairs. I'm pregnant as heck. And I decide I'm going to take the stairs. So I took the stairs, and at the end of the first flight, I hear the door open behind me. And I'm just like, okay, he just decided not to wait for the elevator anymore. So while I hear the door open, I see him walking. I make it to the second flight of stairs. And when I make it to the second flight of stairs, I hear him picking up the pace, like he's chasing or he's running. And so I just got this real scared feeling in my chest, and my chest got tight, and I got so scared, and I was like, I started picking up the pace. I'm waddling already, but then I get to running down the stairs. So then finally I made it to the third flight. And while I'm doing that, I stop on the stairs and I can see him looking down at me. I look up and he's looking down at me, but when I look up at him, his face is all distorted. That's when I knew that he was not a visitor. He was basically something else. So I finished running down the stairs, but every single flight that I hit, he's staring back at me, like he's staring down the flights at me every single time, checking to see where I am. So finally I make it to the door. I push the door open to get outside. I get to my car. Once I get to my car, I'm trying to wait to see if he was gonna come out there towards my car. I'm praying, of course, like I always do, but I'm sitting in my car and I was like, okay, another spirit, that's not uncommon. So I prayed and I went on about my business, and I tried to take my break in my car. Now, while I'm taking my break in my car and I put the seat back to rest, somebody tapped on my glass. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, did I go over my break time? I thought it was one of my coworkers. So I jumped up and nobody was there. But then when I laid my head back, he was in my back seat in my car. And so I was like, oh my God. I jumped up and I jumped out the car and I started running towards the door for me to go back in the hospital. But then I was like looking for my badge, and I left my badge in the car. So I had to go back to the car to get my dang on badge. So while I'm going back to the car to get my badge, I'm looking through the windows to make sure that he's not in there, and he's gone. But I reach for my badge, and then I look over and I see him doing this to come over to him. Like I really was about to do that. That was crazy. But anyway, anybody who knows and anybody who's ever been to Chelsea Hospital knows that there's a small wooded area right there. And that's where he was walking to, and that's where he wanted me to walk to. But just in case nobody knew, when people are pregnant and when they're sick is when spirits bother them the most. So when I did get back into the hospital, I asked them, the doctors and the nurses, more in detail what was wrong with her. And they were just like, oh, she has cancer all over. They're like, I'd be surprised if she made it off this floor, And I'm just like, well, why would they, have her here on this floor if she has cancer all over? And they were just like, I don't know what they're hoping for, but she's still here. We'll just wait it out and see what happens. So I go in there just to check on her. And he's literally just standing there, the man that chased me down the stairs. Now, this is the thing, though. Why did he have to chase me down the stairs? All you had to do was say something. I probably wouldn't answer, but it was the fact that he chased me down the stairs that got me. That got me bad. What up, though? Y'all want to hear about when I returned back to an old haunted place that I used to live in when I was 4 years old? Okay. So my mom told me a real long time ago about, how we used to live on the east side of Detroit on Cadillac in these duplexes, right? And so we're living in this duplex, and she said that I was about 4 years old. She said my father had just left for work, and when he left for work, she said, I was playing in the front, and she said she heard keys jingling. And so when she heard keys jingling, she's like, oh, he finally got somebody to rent out next door. That's what's up. So she gets up and she kind of like peeks over and looks over, and she sees two older women walking into next door with groceries, right? So obviously she's like, okay, somebody moving in. And so then she says she turns around and the woman knocked on the door, and she said that when she opened the door, she was like, yes, ma'am. She said the woman told her, you have you a nice night, baby. Now, okay, I thought it was weird because somebody knocked on your door to tell you to have a nice night. And so my mom was just like, yes, ma'am, you too. So she says that the two older women went ahead and went back into the place next door. Remember, it's a duplex. And so she said that she saw the landlord, a few days later, and she said, hey, I noticed that you got somebody to move in next door. And he was just like, no, nobody's renting that out yet. I haven't rented this out yet. And so my mom was just like, oh, okay. So then fast forward, she said that she sees the women again. This time she saw them leaving the duplex. And she said that when they left the duplex, once they walked down the stairs, they completely disappeared right in front of her eyes. So fast forward, me and my friend, when we were 23 years old, we wanted to buy properties so that we can fix it up and then rent it out to people, right? And so that's what we ended up trying to do. We looked on Zillow and other little apps and stuff. And so we ended up looking on Zillow and we saw this property that was for sale. It was pretty messed up, but it was for sale on Cadillac, right? So we decided that we were going to meet with the person that listed it. We get there to the place and we're sitting in the car. And so I was just like, I said, I just want to peek through what's left of the window. Like, we ain't got to go inside, but I kind of want to peek through there and see, what's going on the inside. So my friend was like, okay, cool. So I'm walking up the stairs. My friend decides that she wants to walk around back. I didn't think that was a good idea, but she did it anyway. So she walks around back and I'm standing there at the top of the stairs. And so when I stand at the top of the stairs, out walks this man. And he's like, hey. I said, hi, are you the man that listed the property? And he was just like, yeah, I'm Jeff. This is my house. I said, oh, okay, well, nice to meet you, Jeff.